Isabella Hartley was born into wealth, but she had built her own empire. Her father, Charles Hartley, had founded a small tech company in the late 80s that grew steadily until it hit its peak in the early 2000s. When he passed away from a sudden heart attack, Isabella, only 26 at the time, took over as CEO. The board doubted her. The investors doubted her. The media mocked her. But within 6 years, she transformed Hartley Industries into one of the most powerful tech companies in the world, focusing on artificial intelligence, robotics, and clean energy. By 32, Isabella was not just rich, she was iconic. People compared her to legends. She had hundreds of employees, a penthouse overlooking Central Park, and access to a life most people couldn't even dream of. Yet, for all her accomplishments, her soul often felt hollow. Every smile she gave in interviews, every polished speech she delivered, every award she accepted, it all felt distant from the little girl who used to climb trees in her backyard and dream about love stories, not balance sheets. Every man she had dated was either in business or entertainment. They would show up in black tie suits, shower her with attention, but talk about money more than emotions. Some men wanted to use her to get into high-profile circles. Others just wanted to prove they could tame a woman like her. No one ever asked her what she was afraid of at night. No one cared about her favorite childhood memory. No one had ever seen her, not really. That was why, on a rainy Thursday night, when her car broke down in an unfamiliar part of Brooklyn, something unexpected began. Her car, a Rolls-Royce Ghost, had been acting strange the entire ride. She had told her assistant to schedule a checkup, but things had been too busy lately. Now she stood in the pouring rain, staring at the engine, cursing under her breath. Her phone had no signal. Her assistant was unreachable. Her security detail was waiting in the city. For once, she was completely alone. Across the street, she spotted an old garage with a rusty sign that said, "Tony's Garage." The neon lights buzzed faintly. She hesitated. It didn't look like the kind of place a billionaire would normally go, but right now, she didn't have a choice. When she stepped inside, the scent of motor oil and iron filled the air. A jazz song played softly from an old radio. A man was working under a lifted car, his back turned to her. He wore a faded gray t-shirt and jeans stained with grease. He stood up slowly, tall and lean, with slightly messy brown hair and warm hazel eyes. He looked surprised to see someone like her standing there, soaking wet, in designer clothes, holding a broken umbrella. "Hi," she said, trying to sound calm. "My car just died. Across the street. Can you help?" He didn't ask who she was. He didn't comment on her clothes or her expensive watch. He just nodded and grabbed his toolkit. "Let's take a look," he said simply. They walked in silence through the rain. His name, she later learned, was Ethan Cole. 29 years old. Mechanic since he was 16. Grew up in foster care. Never had much, but always managed to stay on his feet. He had built his life around honesty, hard work, and staying away from anything fake. Ethan diagnosed the issue quickly. It was a minor electrical fault, nothing too serious. He fixed it with tools he carried in his bag. Isabella offered to pay him generously, but he refused. "Nah," he said with a shrug. "Just bring me coffee sometime." She chuckled, surprised. "You don't want money." He looked her in the eyes. "I'm not really a fan of people paying me just because they think I'm poor." There was something in his tone, quiet but firm. He wasn't rude, just honest. The next morning, Isabella couldn't stop thinking about him. There was something peaceful about the way he spoke. He didn't ask her about her job, her car, or her wealth. He didn't flirt. He didn't act impressed. He just helped her. Like a human helping another human. So the next week, she returned. With 2 cups of coffee. From there, a quiet, beautiful rhythm began. She would visit once or twice a week. Sometimes she brought snacks, sometimes books she thought he'd like. They would sit in the back of the garage near an old couch and talk about everything: music, childhood, dreams, fears. She told him things she had never told anyone. That she had cried after her father's funeral but never in front of anyone. That she hated how people looked at her like a brand, not a person. That sometimes she wanted to just disappear, even for a day, and live in a town where no one knew her name. Ethan listened. He never tried to fix her. He didn't offer deep quotes or false comfort. He just listened. He told her about growing up in group homes. About being bullied for not having nice clothes. About fixing his first engine when he was 15. About watching sunsets from his apartment rooftop because it reminded him that endings could be beautiful. They laughed. They argued sometimes. She once snapped at him for making a joke she misunderstood. He once walked out mid-conversation because he felt she was being arrogant. But they always came back. Because something between them was real, messy, honest, but real. After 3 months, Ethan kissed her. Under the stars. On his rooftop. There were no fireworks, no romantic music. Just silence and heartbeats. For the first time in years, Isabella felt human. But love, especially between two people from such different worlds, is never easy. The media eventually caught them. A photographer snapped a picture of her entering the garage. The next morning, tabloids exploded. Billionaire CEO dates grease monkey. Isabella Hartley's secret mechanic lover revealed. The judgment was brutal. Some called her inspiring. Others called her foolish. The board of her company issued an official statement that her personal choices did not represent the values of Hartley Industries. Sponsors threatened to pull deals. Investors began asking if she was emotionally fit to lead. Ethan was hounded. His garage was photographed, his private life ripped apart. Strangers mocked him online. Some people called him lucky. Others called him a con man. He almost ended it. "Maybe we're from two different worlds," he said one night, sitting beside her on the floor of her penthouse, holding her hand. "Maybe I'm holding you back." She looked at him, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "You're not holding me back. You're the only thing keeping me from falling." That night, she made a decision. At the next company board meeting, she stood up and said, "If who I love threatens this company, then this company never deserved me to begin with." She handed in her resignation. Within a week, her personal fortune, investments, and private assets were enough to sustain her for 10 lifetimes. But what mattered most was freedom. She was no longer tied to expectations. She was free to build something new, with Ethan. They got married in a small coastal town in Maine. Only 20 people attended. She wore a simple white gown. He wore a navy blue shirt and khakis. They read vows they had written by hand. There were tears, laughter, and the sound of waves in the background. After the wedding, they bought a quiet farmhouse with a garden, 2 dogs, and a view of the stars. Isabella started a nonprofit to support young women in tech from low-income backgrounds. Ethan expanded his garage and began mentoring teens who had dropped out of school. They lived simply. They still fought sometimes, about dishes, schedules, or past scars. But every fight ended with a hug. A kiss. A whisper of, "I'm not going anywhere." Because in the end, love doesn't ask about wealth, background, or status. It asks, "Do you see me? Do you accept me? Will you stay?" And for Isabella and Ethan, the answer was always yes.